The reaction is already a big no from China on this one. What's the administration trying to do with our trade relationship?
Well, there are a couple of competing priorities here. One is the issue of wanting to maintain a relationship with China, but also wanting to correct, as the president says, this imbalance between the fact that, look, China does this a lot. I mean, Chinese tariffs on U.S. goods are sky high, so there's a natural disadvantage there for U.S. goods. But at the same time, a lot of this is pretty symbolic. I mean, you mentioned EVs. China does not really export any EVs into the United States. So I think what you're seeing here more is a signaling attempt to hit China in an area where it sees a large prospect of growth, but also looking to head off what the administration thinks could be coming later on. So listen, we're basically telling you right now we are closing the door on Chinese EVs. So I don't think you're going to see a huge economic impact in the U.S. from these now, but it's really sending a signal of where the administration is heading and what they don't want to see coming from China in the future.
Well, I guess it's a question of whether China is going to start closing doors in response. Right. This is actually something we asked U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai about earlier today on Bloomberg Television, and this is what she told us.
We are interested to see how China responds. We have indicated to China that this is not an intention to escalate or even to confront. It really is on our side a set of defensive measures when taken together with the investments that we are making here in green and clean technology.
Not the intention to escalate, Nick, but certainly China could escalate if it so chooses. We asked Katherine Tai what the worst case scenario is here, essentially, in terms of China's response. She didn't want to speculate as to that. What would it be, though? I
mean, I think when you look at these tariffs, the sky's the limit. You look to President Biden's competition for 2024, former President Donald Trump has said he wants to put in 60% tariffs on China if he comes into office. And the Bloomberg projection is essentially that would drop Chinese exports to the United States to zero. So, I mean, this could get a lot worse. So I think what you're seeing right now really is much more of a sort of symbolic shot across the bow for the Biden administration.
The White House seems to be bristling today at the idea of this being framed as a trade war. Well, and while China was in the air at the White House today, and certainly the topic of discussion, the Secretary of State was overseas. Antony Blinken moving from his shuttle diplomacy in the Middle East to Kyiv today as a show of support for Ukraine.
I have come to Ukraine with a message. You are not alone. The United States has been by your side from day one. We are with you today. And we will stay by your side until Ukraine's security, its sovereignty, its ability to choose its own path is guaranteed.
Nick, the money's out the door, the weapons are being sent. Why the visit now? Who's the audience?
I mean, Ukraine is certainly the audience there, as well as Republicans back home. I mean, it's an incredible message from Secretary Blinken. We spent the last 6 months wondering when this money was going to come, and finally they unlocked it, and the administration is essentially privately saying, listen, there is no prospect you guys are going to get any more money at year's end once this $60 billion runs out. So, you know, of course he's going to go and say, we stand by your side, you're not alone. But looming over all of this is essentially this sort of Damocles that's like, we are not going to have a ton more money for you. And you look at what may happen if Trump comes in. I mean, a lot of questions there. I would not be very surprised if Ukraine was not terribly reassured by this message from the Secretary of State.
All right, Bloomberg's Nick Wadhams, who leads our U.S. national security coverage here in Washington. Thank you so much. Let's turn now to New York and the criminal trial of Donald Trump and continued testimony of his former attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, today. The defense got its chance at Cohen in cross-examination. That will continue later on this week. But there were also a few other big names and supporters of Trump in attendance at court today, including the House Speaker.
I called President Trump and told him I wanted to be here myself to call out what is a travesty of justice, and I think everybody around the country can see that. President Trump is a friend, and I wanted to be here to support him.
That was Mike Johnson there. Bloomberg's Wendy Benjaminson is joining us now. So, Wendy, the Speaker of the House, very high up there on the presidential line to succession,
yes,
shows up at the courthouse in defense of a former president. Is it that Donald Trump needed Mike Johnson there, or Mike Johnson needed to go there to make sure he stays in the favor
Well, it's a very savvy question, Kailey, and the answer is Mike Johnson needs Donald Trump. And all these Republicans who have been there this week holding these news conferences outside the courthouse, they're all helping Donald Trump first through the gag order. He can't complain about the trial anymore. An appeals court today upheld his gag order. And so he's getting surrogates to do it for him, to say all the things that you just heard Mike Johnson saying. However, these guys also want Donald Trump to like them, to support them, and in many cases, not Mike Johnson's, but in the rest of their cases, to pick them to be his running mate and to be vice president of the United States. Mike Johnson needs Trump to back him if there's any more revolts among his conference to kick him out of office. So this was Veep stakes being played out, audition, apprentice style, right there in front of the Manhattan courthouse. And it's so different than it was in years gone by when if a politician was in trouble, his friends abandoned him immediately. In this case, they're all still there saying, I want to be part of this.
Even wearing matching suits.
Even wearing matching suits.
Serious,
that was really amazing.
Serious color coordination, almost at a central casting. So imagine being the witness. And, of course, today that was Michael Cohen, and he's got his own baggage and story to tell about Donald Trump here. But to see the optics here, the extent to which this would intimidate a witness, has to be mentioned. Imagine being in the witness box and the Speaker of the House and other elected officials are striding down the aisle to support the former president. And as we just heard, Mike Johnson called this a travesty of justice.
Absolutely, which is, if Donald Trump said that right now, he'd be in Rikers, right, which is what the threat is hanging over his head and why he needs these friends to come say this stuff for him for the political thing. Yeah. But you're absolutely right on the witness intimidation. There was that moment today where Michael Cohen is on the stand testifying that Trump, was well behind the payment to Stormy Daniels. In other words, making the prosecution's case for them, that he signed off on this hush money payment. And the courtroom doors swing open, and there's half the Republican leadership and governors of states and, and all of that standing there in Donald Trump's same outfit, the blue suit, the white shirt, the red tie, and they're all standing there staring at him. I mean, it seemed like witness intimidation to me.
But not breaking any rules, though, to
not
be clear,
breaking
right?
a single rule. They are absolute. The court's open to the public.
Just like the rule is that Donald Trump has to be in the courtroom every day of this trial. He will not have to be tomorrow. It's on break. Thursday, though, they will come back, resume the cross-examination of Michael Cohen. But the prosecution says this is the last witness they're calling. Things could potentially wrap up in pretty short order, Wendy, and we could be reaching that make-or-break moment of whether or not Donald Trump ends up acquitted or a convicted felon well before the Republican convention.
Absolutely. And then what we'll have to see is, does it matter? All these people still are banking on being his running mate, whether or not he's a convicted felon. It's very highly unlikely he'll go to prison because he'll appeal, and if he is convicted, it's a very good chance he'll be acquitted. So they're all gambling on this turning out for him, and so far it's helped him electorally. So
yeah, and then the question will become, when do we hear from the Supreme Court on Donald Trump's immunity claim?
Yeah, certainly by June 30th. So June's going to be fun.